Can we keep our cattle fed through the winter when the fields that are supposed to be regrowing right now are barely moving? Hi, and welcome back to Whitetail Acres Farm. Summer is in full swing here, and for a lot of people, this hot, dry weather is exactly what they've been waiting for. Pool days, cookouts, long evenings on the porch, and there's something genuinely beautiful about the way the sun hits the fields in late June. The golden light across the hayfields, the cattle grazing in the distance, it looks like a postcard. But for us, and for a lot of farmers right now, this kind of heat without any real rain to back it up, it's starting to weigh on us. Here's the thing about hay. We got our first cutting in a few weeks ago, 27 acres, baled and stacked in the barn. And don't get me wrong, that first cutting felt good. The hay quality was solid. We worked hard for it. But here's what we know. That first cutting, as good as it was, it's not enough to get us through the entire winter. Especially not this winter. Because in the upcoming weeks, we're expecting a few new calves to be born. That's more mouths to feed, more mouths through the coldest months when there's nothing growing and every bale counts. Normally by now, we'd be watching these hayfields bounce back. A good rain or two in June, some warm soil, and you'd see the grass pushing up, building toward a solid second cutting in mid to late summer. That second cutting is what fills the barn. That's what gets you through January and February when the snow's piled up and the cattle are burning energy just staying warm. But that's not what's happening this year. Now, we've had some rain here and there, a quick shower, a passing storm, but it hasn't been hard enough rain or lasted long enough to really soak in and wake up these fields. The kind of rain where you can walk out an hour after it stops and the top half inch of soil is already dry again, that's what we've been getting. And it shows. So let me walk you through what we're doing to manage this, because when you're in a situation like this, when the rain isn't cooperating and the fields are growing painfully slow, grazing management becomes everything. We run a rotational grazing system here. For anyone newer to the channel, let me explain what that actually means. Instead of just opening up a gate and letting the cattle have free run of wherever and whatever they want, we divide our pastures into smaller sections called paddocks. Using step-in posts and electric rope, the cattle go into one paddock, they graze it down, and then we move them to the next one. Good morning, girls. And here's the thing about cattle. If you just give them free access to a large open field, they're not going to eat every blade of grass evenly. They're selective grazers. They'll hit their favorite spots over and over again while ignoring the tougher stuff. Over time, the good grasses get overgrazed and stressed, and the weeds and rough forage take over. You end up with a field that looks green from a distance, but isn't actually producing what your herd needs. Rotational grazing changes that. By limiting them to a smaller area for a controlled amount of time, they graze more evenly. They eat a wider variety of what's available instead of just cherry picking. And critically, once they've moved off of a paddock, that paddock gets rest, recovery time, a chance to regrow before the cattle come back around. That rest period is everything, and right now, that's exactly where we're running into trouble. Right now, we're watching the amount of time they spend on each paddock more closely than ever. Normally, we aim to move them off when the grass is down to about 3 or 4 inches, short enough that they've gotten good value out of the paddock, but tall enough that the root systems aren't damaged and the grass can recover. But when the fields are growing this slowly, We're letting them stay on each paddock a little bit longer than we normally would. Not so long that they chew it down to dirt. That would set us back even further, but long enough to really extract every bit of forage we can before we rotate. We're also being very strategic about which paddock we move them to next. We walk the paddocks every few days, checking which ones are recovering fastest, which ones still need more time, which ones have the best grass coming up. Some paddocks are bouncing back better than others. The ones with more shade, the ones on the lower ground where the soil holds more moisture longer, those are the ones we're leaning on right now. And then there's brush hogging. After the cattle come off of a paddock, we run the brush hog through it, and this is one of those practices that easily gets skipped. It takes time and it burns diesel, and on the surface it looks like you're just mowing down grass that's already been grazed, but here's why we do it. Remember what I said about cattle being selective grazers? They eat what they like and then they leave what they don't. If you just move them off and leave that paddock alone, the weeds and tough stemmy stuff that they ignore get a head start. Those plants are already taller and more established than the good grasses that the cattle eat down. Without intervention, they shade out the desirable forage and the paddock quality declines over time. Brush hogging resets the playing field. It knocks everything down to the same height, the weeds, the leftover tough grasses, everything. Now the good grasses, the ones we actually want, have an even chance of regrowing alongside everything else. But here's the catch. Brush hogging only works if there's enough moisture in the soil to trigger that regrowth. Right now, we're brush hogging. The John Deere 5100E is hooked up and ready, but the response from the fields has been slow, painfully slow. But I'll tell you one thing that has been going right around here, and that's our new Onsite fuel station. We finally got it filled with off-road diesel, and I can't tell you how much of a difference it's already making. We've used it to fill up the riding mower and already topped off the tractor with it too. For anyone who's ever managed a property this size without bulk fuel on site, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The old routine was realize the tractor's low, load up the fuel cans, drive to the station, fill them, drive back, wrestle the cans up to the tank, maybe spill a little on the way, maybe swear a little bit, and finally get back to work 20 minutes later, minimum. Now we pull up, pump, and go, and that's it. The time savings alone is worth the investment, especially during hay season and summer grazing when you're running equipment almost every day. And buying off-road diesel in bulk, well, we're saving on fuel itself too. No road tax, better price per gallon. When you're burning through as much diesel as we do during growing season, those savings add up fast. It's one of those infrastructure upgrades that doesn't make for flashy content, but on a day-to-day level, it changes everything. One less thing to fight. And in summer, when we're already fighting the weather, we'll take every win that we can right now. The hay fields are where it really hits home. The next morning, we walked out onto the property to get an honest look at where we stand. Those hay fields that we baled just a few weeks ago, they've only grown a few inches since. We're out here looking at the grass that should be knee-high right now, and instead we're seeing fields that are barely moving. At least the deer are enjoying it, but I'm not so sure how much our cattle will be getting it at this point. And there's another problem creeping in, the clover. In a normal year, clover in your hay field is a good thing. It fixes nitrogen in the soil, it adds protein to your hay. A mix of grass and clover makes for excellent feed. But when the grasses are struggling and the clover is the only thing that's thriving, it starts to take over. You end up with a field that looks green from the road but isn't producing the tonnage you need. and tonnage is what fills the barn for the winter. The fields are also taking on a yellowish tint. That's heat stress. That's the grass is telling you it's not getting what it needs. The soil's warm, the days are long, but without water moving through those root systems, the plants are just stalling out. We really truly are praying for a wet July because our cattle are relying on us to feed them, and we are relying on the fields to help them maintain full bellies. And that brings me to a decision that we've already made. We've started tapping into our hay supply. It's June. We should be building inventory right now, stacking bales, watching the barn fill up, not pulling from it. But we made the call to start giving them a couple troughfuls of hay each day, just enough to supplement what they're not getting from the pastures right now, just to make sure nobody's going to bed with less than a full belly. Because if we wait until they start dropping weight, we've already waited too long. This is one of those decisions that stings a little. Every flake of hay we feed in June is a flake we don't have for January, but the cattle look good and they're maintaining their condition, and with calves on the way, maintaining condition isn't optional, it's essential. But here's what we keep coming back to when we're walking the fields and the worry starts to creep in. We've put the systems in place. The rotational grazing is working, even if it's only working slowly. The paddocks that got brush hogged earliest are showing the best regrowth. The fuel station is up and running, one less friction point in our daily operation. The cattle are healthy, the herd is strong, and we're not scrambling. We're making calculated decisions based on what the fields are telling us. We're doing all of the things that we can control. The rain, that's out of our hands. But the management decision, the timing, the strategy, the infrastructure, that's all us. And I believe we're making the right decisions and the right calls. If we get a wet July, and we're really due for one, and we're praying for it, these fields will bounce back faster than most people think. Grass is resilient. Soil is resilient. We just need the weather to meet us halfway. If you've had a season like this, where you're doing everything right and the weather just isn't cooperating, we'd love to hear about how you got through it in the comments below. Whether it's a different grazing strategy, a creative feed solution, or just how you kept your head on straight when the fields weren't growing, drop that in the comments for us. There's a lot of farmers facing the same situation right now, and honestly, we learn the most from each other. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more grazing and hay adventures along with everything else that we have going on the farm. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.